to do today would be to just kind of tell each other what we do and kind of why we do it. And I think that's always an interesting question to ask anyway. So that's what I'm going to try and do today in 20 minutes, I guess, really. Just introduce who the Larks are, what we do, and why we do it, and give some examples as well of work that we've made over the last sort of 6 or 7 years, I guess. So these are the Larks, and myself included. There's 4 of us in this collective at the minute. There used to be 5 of us. There used to be V as well, who's kind of she's just taking a break at the minute, but hopefully she'll join in again. And we all we all do different things as well. That's the first thing to kind of say. Like, as much as we would all love to just spend our time doing the Larks, we all have to do many other different things. We used to be called Larking About as well, but we had to change our name because somebody else already had that name and they got very upset with us. It still hurts that we're not Larking About for me, but anyway, the Larks is nice, so we can deal with that. So what do we do? This is something we always talk about. This is something that kind of excites us. We always, and I'm just going to throw this out there at the beginning really to kind of frame maybe some of the things we'll talk about, or that I'll talk about in terms of our work. So just kind of keep this in the back of your mind. What we like to think we do sometimes is offer people a chance to go down a rabbit hole. Sometimes we might interrupt them in their day and kind of give them a helping hand, kicking them down that rabbit hole. Sometimes it's a bit more formal and a bit more of an invitation sort of thing. But that's a useful way to think. I think about this work and something we come back to. So why did we start doing all this? We're all theatre makers mainly, and apart from Yana, who you saw on the end there, who's a geographer, which means she colours in a lot now. But Trisha, myself, and Crofty, we're all theatre makers. We've all come from a theatre background, and very specifically, we've all kind of come from quite a sort of experimental, contemporary kind of theatre background. That's kind of the sort of thing we did on our degrees. And this is us at the theatre generally. As theatre people, this is generally how I feel. Bored out of my head, like these people. We're sort of sat in the dark. And we're not doing anything, and so this is kind of, that's kind of how we feel about theatre at the minute, and this kind of motivates us. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we try to address that, I guess, in a second. But some of our influences, these are just some of the companies that have influenced either one of us or us as a collective. And I think what's key about all of this work, some of this work still involves you sitting down in an auditorium in the dark watching, work like this, for example. But what kind of is interesting about all that work is it questions what theatre can do. It questions like where it can take place, how it can take place, what it looks like. And so this type of work has really fed a lot of our thinking and on our journey to the Larks, I guess, really. So yeah, if you wanted to, some of you might know these companies as well, but if you want to know anything more about those, you can ask me later. And of course, the other thing that's key about this type of work is that it looks at technology. So uses technology in interesting ways, particularly people like blast theory. Participation is key in this work. Coney's piece here, I love this piece of Small Town Anywhere because it's a piece of theatre that has no actors in it, and the audience do everything. There's a voice, I think, which is the only kind of actor in it. And it's experimental, all this is experimental. Something else we talk about a lot, not particularly Shenmue, but this is about 6-7 years ago when we first started thinking about this work. This kind of is a focal point for us, this open world video game. A lot of us have grown up, particularly Crofty and me, have kind of grown up pretty obsessed with video games. And we love this idea of the living world. And this game, we talked about this game loads actually when it came out on the Dreamcast years ago. And we kind of liked the way that there wasn't really a kind of main story in Shenmue. You just kind of had to explore and kind of produce your own story, I guess, in some ways. And you just were kind of given a living world to kind of wander around and have encounters with. And we kind of really love this. When we started to think, about how could you kind of create that in a real city? How could you, what would this look like if we were to turn that into theatre using the sort of things we know about performance? How could you bring that off a screen into say a city like Manchester? Manchester's got good graphics, doesn't it? Yeah. Pretty good effects, doesn't it? Great physics. See, I sort of say those things, then you feel like you're a game designer, don't you? Talking those things, Yeah. Great graphics engine or something like that, isn't it? I don't know what I'm talking about, but we wanted to do something in Manchester. Yeah, great AI. Yeah, great AI. Very unpredictable. So what would happen if we tried to blend some live performance with sort of video game structures and design in a city like this? What about the pervasive possibilities of all of this? How could we create these rabbit holes in our city and then interrupt people's days, or even kind of have these situations where you just kind of interrupt the public, because the public's going on that. I'll come to that in a second. So let's talk about our first experiment in all of this. This is in 2006. So this was even before Larkin About actually existed. We were just kind of, Crofty's company was called Doldrum Theatre, and they'd done work at university where they'd done a lot of audio work, walk type of work in Lancaster. So they created performances where audience would have headphones and they'd wander around and go on a train and meet at a train station and do kind of various things. So we were sort of experimenting with this, and we basically said, right, okay, we want to create a video game in the streets of Manchester. That was the kind of premise. So we picked the Northern Quarter, which is kind of a really interesting part of Manchester. It's quite a creative part of town now. It used to be very much the kind of heart of the industry there. So you've got lots of like empty mill buildings and those type of buildings there now, and they're sort of full of cool bars and sort of creative industries and lots of graphic designers and things, I guess around there. And so what we did is we wanted to create a linear narrative in these streets. This is years ago now. And it would see players basically meeting a series of characters around these streets who had each had something stolen by the devil. We were quite interested in the devil. We always seem to keep coming back to the devil in our work. And basically each of these characters needed something from you in order to let you progress through the experience. So it's that video game thing again of, when you meet the character, you've got to take something to the character before you get to go to the next bit of the content. And so we kind of really interested in this. So we had this sort of map. This was kind of the game area, and we'd sort of pop characters in various different places. And we were really interested in kind of playing with those ways in video games when you go up to a character and you've not got the right thing, and the character just goes into a loop, just keeps repeating the same thing to you until you bring in the right thing. So we were interested in trying to play with that in kind of real life. But of course, real life is actually going on. So you unlike in the video game, you've got people walking by going, why are you dressed like a rabbit? Why are you running away shouting like that? What's going on? Why are you doing this? Just the public is kind of curious. So let me talk you through this experience sort of quickly. The game starts with me. I was the rabbit hole in some ways in this game. So I'm standing in Piccadilly Gardens here, and I just look fairly normal. And I'm either approaching people who look like they might need to be kicked down a rabbit hole, or people have been sent to me because they'd heard about the game and wanted to come and play it. And I was a pirate. I was a video game pirate, basically. So what that means is I was selling illegal copies of video games on discs. So now these were all games that we just made up, and I'd kind of go up to people like, do you want to buy a game? Open my coat. Got all these DVDs, CDs there, which is made up, completely made up video games. And obviously people were like, I'm not interested in those, sound rubbish, And then I said, I know what you need. You need a new game. It's our new game on a new format. It's called No Format. And then I give them an envelope. So I give them this envelope, and I give them a carrot. And then I run off, as you can see here, shouting, no sympathy for the devil, bear that in mind, you bought the ticket, now take the ride. Ah! and they just run, making a lot of noise. And I'm always curious, these people here just having a picnic, thinking, what on earth is he doing? What's going on? And they're kind of left there. They're left there with this carrot and this envelope. And they open the envelope and there's a map in there. And it's that map from before, shows you where the characters are. And you've got to figure out which characters you need to go to first. So if basically you figure out that the first character you're going to meet is the rabbit in Stevenson Square. And that's Trisha, actually. And she was very proud of that papier-mâché thing that she'd made there. And obviously there was a bit of graffiti there as well, actually. It's not there anymore, that graffiti, but which was kind of like a rabbit. So you go to the rabbit, and the rabbit has had its bounce stolen by the devil, so it can't bounce anymore. It's not a happy rabbit at all. But of course, you've got a carrot, and we all know that rabbits like carrots. So if you give the rabbit the carrot the rabbit will tell you where to go next. And actually, the rabbit would give you batteries in return. So it's this thing in a video game, isn't it? You give something to one character, they give you something else that allow you to go to the next bit. And so the next character you would meet would be the femme fatale. Sophia here, who is quite a sort of famous actress in England. Well, I'll say famous, she's been quite a few things now in England, Sophia. And she's basically had her voice stolen from the devil. She had no voice. And so she sat at this coffee shop with a tape recorder. And the voice is on the tape recorder. And as people are walking by, she's just kind of like... And people are like, what's wrong? And she's like... And then she's sort of opening it up and saying there's no batteries in there. And she's like, but of course, eventually when you get there, if you've been to see the rabbit, you've got batteries, so you're fine. So you put the batteries in, you play it. Sophia's voice comes out. She tells this story of how the devil had stolen her voice and was angry with her. She'd made a deal with him, and also how she'd just fallen out of love with the cowboy who was property here. And there was another part of the place, and he was the sad and lonely cowboy. And actually, the thing that Sophia would give you, once for giving the batteries, is she'd give you some instructions, some line dance instructions. Very simple sort of square line dancing, yeah? And so you go and find the cowboy, and he's very sad and lonely, the cowboy. He's lost his girlfriend, he's lost his mojo, he's kind of... That's what he's had stolen from the devil, actually. We're not sure what mojo is, but it's something cowboy probably needs, and he's very upset. But it's okay, because you've learnt a line dance by this point. And, we all know there's nothing a cowboy loves more than a bit of line dancing to cheer him up, So you do a bit of a dance with him. Here, you sort of, in the streets, you sort of teach him this dance, and you have a little dance with him. And then he basically tells you to go, you have a little conversation with him, and he basically tells you to go to a phone box. And you go to this phone box, and it rings, and it's the devil on the phone. And the devil's saying, I've been watching you. I'm not very happy. You're undoing all the work that I've done, and I'm putting an end to it right now. So you need to come and meet me, and we're going to have a final battle. You're going to find me in the Bay Horse pub. Come now. Now, unbeknownst to you, while the players are doing this bit, on the other side of the street, there's someone taking a photograph and a Polaroid. Old Polaroid. We're sort of quite interested in those analog technologies as well at times, So you've got an instant photograph being taken of you. That's important for a second. So you find this pub, the Bay Horse, which is in the northern quarter as well. They've got this sort of secret garden at the back, and we kind of set up in there. And you eventually find it, and you see that the devil is sat in there. And he reveals that the final challenge is a game of Connect 4, obviously, and you have to play Connect 4 against the devil here. It's Johnny here, and you've got to play it with these headphones on, with these very dramatic music on, and it's all quite dramatic. And then basically he says, you're going to play for your soul, and he shows you the photograph. If you win, you get to take the photograph and keep your soul. If I win, your soul stays with me.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are you in a group in there, or are you just one by one going in to play this?
No, you're a team. You're a team of 3 or 4 people who've kind of gone in. So, yeah. And then that's kind of it, basically. You kind of finish that, you either win your soul or you don't. And this was really like one of our kind of first experiments. And even when we did the variations on this, actually, it was quite interesting because some people actually got really upset when they lost. We had one girl who may have been a bit religious, we're not sure, but she was really devastated when she was told her soul was gone. I mean, she was in tears, and we were just like, shit, what have we done? So that's where we started. That's really where we started. And then we did the apocalypse several years later, the end of the world to Manchester. This is when we were larking about now. Big famous joke in Manchester is this. You'll see this in the Northern Quarter again. 2006, yeah.